Hey, what's going on guys? It's that Blue Abarth here and welcome back to the channel and another video. Now today I want to talk about something that can be quite controversial within the Abarth community. Something that a lot of owners and people that have reviewed the car don't seem to like. And that is the automatic gearbox. Now there has to be reasons into why people don't like the automatics. And well, I'm going to be diving into those reasons today and also giving you tips, pointers and information that may help you with owning the gearbox itself. A few things that might help you into maintaining it as well. And talking of maintenance, we're going to dive straight into that because, well, that is probably the most important part of the automatic gearbox. Let's get started. Right, so let's talk about maintenance. Now, if you scour the Abarth forums, you'll find that there are two very common issues with the Abarth automatic gearbox. And what are these issues, you might be asking? Well, number one, the gearbox goes into limp mode or selects neutral and won't go back into gear. And number two is maintaining the gearbox itself. Now, there are ways around these problems, and I will be giving you information on how to fix these issues. But I'll also be giving you information on what's actually happening and what's causing the problems. And how about we get started with issue number one, and that is the gearbox going into limp mode or selecting neutral and won't go back into gear. Now, this can be a pretty tricky and awkward situation. I mean, if you are out and about, or if you're anywhere that isn't home, you're pretty much going to be stranded because, hey, the gearbox won't go back into gear. That's a problem. You ain't moving anywhere. Especially if you're in traffic, that's a right doozy, that's for sure. Now, what's causing this issue? Why is this happening? Why won't my gearbox go back into gear? Well, the culprit, my friends, is the actuator. Now, if the actuator goes, like I said, you ain't going into gear and you ain't moving. Now, what should I do? How do I fix this issue? Well, pretty much, you want to get the actuator replaced, but how do we go about doing this? Well, I guess first of all, you'd want to get the car towed to your local Fiat/Abarth dealership, and then you want to order a new actuator. Now, this is where another problem starts to arise, and that is actually getting the part. Now, you might be lucky and they might have an actuator in stock, but if not, then that means they'll have to order it from Italy, and a lot of Fiat and Abarth parts do come from Italy, which means you might have to wait maybe a couple of days or maybe even a week for the part to be delivered. But if that's the case, then I guess you'll just have to wait. But if they already have it in stock, then that's fine. But if the part does arrive, then you'll just have to get the dealership to replace the actuator. And once that's done, then the problem is solved. Now, this seems to happen quite a lot with Abarth and Fiat automatics. I don't really see much of this happening to the Fiat automatics, but I do read about it a lot for the Abarths. And, well, if this does happen, then just go and do that process and you'll be all right, 100% fine, and then you can drive the car again. Now, moving on to problem number two, which I was going to give you a tip for problem number one actually, which is if you're there and getting the actuator replaced, try and see if you can get the gearbox serviced as well, because then that will be quite useful. And also that means both problem number one and two will be sorted. So that will be great. Now, what actually happens if they do service the gearbox? Well, that will be filter, seals, and a few other things as well. So it's pretty much a no-brainer to do really, because then both issues will be solved and you won't have to worry about it in the future. But I'll go into a bit more detail by talking about problem number two, which is maintaining the gearbox itself. Now, there's a few things I want to talk about when it comes to the gearbox. And first of all, I want to talk about if you're wanting to buy an automatic Abarth. Now, if the Abarth has around 30,000 miles or above, then sort of alarm bells will start to go off because there is an interval for the gearbox to be serviced. It's sort of like the cam belt. Now, if you know the interval for the cam belt, then you'll pretty much get an idea of what the interval for the gearbox will be. Now, for the cam belt, it's every 5 years or 50,000 miles. Now, mine was nowhere near the mileage, but it was 5 years old, so I got it done. Now, as for the gearbox, it's 30,000 miles. And like I said, if the car that you're wanting to buy has 30,000 miles or maybe over that figure, check the service history. You want to make sure that the gearbox has already been done, and you want to make sure that there's proof and evidence that it has been done as well. So yeah, recorded service history. That will be the main thing that you can check to see if it's been done. Now, if it hasn't been done, then try and make sure that it gets done before the purchase is complete and you drive away with the car, because otherwise you may be worrying about having to get it done in the future. And you don't want to have to worry about driving your car and whether you're going to have to service it or not. You just want to purchase the Abarth and drive it because they're so much fun. I mean, I love driving these cars, especially worry-free. That's the best type of driving. Worry-free motoring is awesome. So, if you want to buy an automatic Abarth, check the service history. If it's been done, go ahead and purchase the car and have some fun. If not, make sure it gets done. And that's pretty much it for that. Now, if you already own an Abarth and you're sitting at around maybe 55,000 miles, then 60,000 miles is the next interval to get it serviced. Now, where would I get it done? You're probably asking. Well, obviously, you can get it done at your main dealer, or you can go to your local garage or anywhere that's able to do it. Now, there's a bit of a weird thing when it comes to prices of this process. You can actually get a cheaper deal with your main dealer, which I know doesn't make any sense. Usually it's the other way round. You would ask your local garage first before your main dealer. But in this case, I've actually been quite surprised with the prices of main dealers. When I got my cam belt done, I actually went with the main Fiat/Abarth dealership and they gave me a stonking price. I asked around at other garages and they were really expensive. So that's a little tip for you guys. In future, if you need anything doing to your Abarth, ask your main dealer first. You might be pleasantly surprised. Now, I've actually just remembered, I didn't give you a price for the previous job, the actuator. Now, I'll probably put it on screen with some text during that little segment, but I'll tell you here now as well. It's around 150 to 200 pounds or euros to get done, which isn't too bad. I mean, you'd want to get it done anyway, because otherwise, like I said, you can't use the car or the gearbox anyway. So actually, I don't think that's a bad price, to be honest. 150 to 200, it ain't terrible, to be fair. But yeah, so that's the price for that job. Now, for your gearbox service, I'm not actually too sure how much it would be. Probably around the same, I want to say, around 150 to 200. It really does depend. I mean, some dealerships give different prices, so who knows? But it's probably around that same price range, about 150 to 200. And it's worth it to get it done, because then worry-free. You won't have to worry about having the gearbox done again, and you can just drive the car and enjoy it. So there you go. That is both of the most common issues with the Abarth automatic gearboxes, and that is how to fix them too. It's pretty much the best ways to keep them maintained as well, so then in the future you don't have to do it again, and then you'll know how to fix it too. And so, with the main mechanical problems out the way, it's time to go on to the other issues that Abarth owners talk about with the automatic gearbox. So let's get right into that. So it's now time to talk about the remaining issues with the Abarth automatic gearbox. And now, it's nothing mechanical, but it seems to be how it feels on the road. A lot of Abarth owners and people that have experienced the automatic gearbox seem to say it's no good. They feel as if it's not very nice, it's not great to use, it's a bit jerky, and they just don't recommend it. Now, a while ago, I had the pleasure of experiencing an automatic Abarth, a 695 automatic Abarth as well. That's right, guys, a 695. It was pretty awesome, I must admit. Now, it was a pretty weird car, I've got to say. Everything from the wheels, those awesome sailbolts, nothing weird about them, that's for sure. The gearbox and the colour. The colour was probably the weirdest thing. It was blue with like a purple tin, and it was matte all at the same time. Very, very strange. I think it was a brand new colour that had just been introduced to the roster. I couldn't find it anywhere online, and it was very, very different. Yeah, I think different's the right word. Now, I did do a full video review on this car. I gave my thoughts and opinions on the exterior, interior, and the gearbox as well. I didn't really go into it as much as I'm going to today, but I did give a few little, opinions here and there about it. And if you want to go watch that video, I'll put the thumbnail in the top corner so you can find it in the list of videos on the channel. And I recommend you giving it a watch. You'll have to let me know what you think about that colour, because it's very unique, 100% different. Never seen that on an Abarth before. Very, very weird, but I did kind of like it. You'll have to let me know what you think. But yeah, so let's go into the gearbox. Now, on that day, I wasn't driving the car. It was my dad testing it. And we did have sort of mixed opinions about it. It was a 50-50 split of liking it and disliking it. Now, I'll go through the things we didn't really like that much first, and then we'll get into some positives, because it's always nice to end on a good note. Now, the negatives. It was slightly jerky, a bit confused, and didn't really know what it wanted to do at times, and it just wasn't very nice to, you know, experience and feel on the road. Now, I've got to give it some slack here, cut it some slack, you know, give it the benefit of the doubt, because it was a brand new car. Brand spanking 73 plate, minty fresh. I'm talking just come off the boat from Italy. So, of course, it hadn't been used at all. There was barely any miles on it, and it didn't have any time to properly, you know, set itself in, wake itself up. So the gearbox, obviously, would be a little bit jerky, and, of course, it would have a few things that needed to be, you know, taken out, and that would have been just using it for a few months. I imagine if we had that car and used it for maybe 2 or 3 months, all those issues would have just sorted themselves out, and it probably would have been a lovely gearbox to use. But for that moment in time, it just wasn't very nice. We didn't really have a great experience with it, and that was mainly because of it being jerky. Didn't know what it wanted to do. Sometimes it upshifted in weird places, then it would downshift, upshift, do this and that. It didn't really know what it wanted to do. But like I said, there are some positives as well, and it did feel quite nice at times. It was very responsive. When you press the paddle shifter, it would shift up when you wanted it to, and the downshifts were nice. It didn't take too long to go through the gears, and it was pretty awesome to use when you put your foot down. Now, the gearboxes in the Series 4 automatics are an MTA, manual transmission automated, or automatic. It's one of the two. I'll put text on the screen anyway. But pretty much what that means is you get paddle shifters, and oh yes, paddle shifters, the good stuff. I mean, I don't think there's anyone out there that doesn't love a good bit of paddle shifting action, because hey, it means you get to do a bit of and a bit of boom. It's awesome stuff. Believe me, it's very, very entertaining. Now, in the Series 3 automatics, you didn't get paddle shifters. You got a sequential style shifting system where you'd get the gear stick, and pretty much you could put it, I think it was to the left, and then you could shift up and down using the stick, which was pretty awesome. I've got to admit, that's a pretty neat thing to put in, but a lot of people were crying out for a bit of flappy paddle shifting action, and I don't blame them. A car like this, it just suits paddle shifters. Now, thankfully, we got that in the Series 4, but it still meant that you had to deal with that gearbox. Now, I have read and seen a few videos of people that have higher mileage automatics. I'm talking like 30, 40, sometimes even 50,000 miles. And the gearbox is actually fine. It's really, really nice, and people really do enjoy it. It's got rid of a lot of those issues that a lot of people seem to talk about. And that's pretty much all you've got to do, really. It's just drive the car, actually use it. Go easy on it, but have a bit of fun with it. And then it'll sort itself out, like I said, and it'll be a lot nicer to use. Now, I don't know what's currently happening with that 2023 plate 695. I don't know if anyone's bought it or if it's still sitting at the dealership. But if someone has bought it, I imagine that by now, it's probably quite nice, and it's, you know, really, really good. And it's a lot more responsive and less jerky and just a lot more comfortable to use. I'd say it was about maybe 5 or 6 months ago that we tested and used that car. So, hey, everything might be hunky-dory, 100%, all golden by now. But yeah, so I guess in terms of tips that I give you guys to make the gearbox feel better is just to use the car. Go easy on it, like I said, but, you know, just have a good time in it and just open it up a bit, wake it up, give it a bit of an Italian tune-up. Now, the manual gearboxes are perfectly fine in the Abarths. It's pretty much the main gearbox that all of them have, and they are just excellent, especially in sport mode, because as we know, the car comes with sport and comfort. Now, if you have the manual box, you can use either mode, and it will just be awesome. You get to decide when to shift the box, and it's just awesome. Now with the automatics, it's a bit of a different story. It seems whatever mode you're in does actually affect how the car drives. Now of course, obviously it affects how the car drives because it changes the way it behaves. In sport mode, you get tighter steering, sharpened throttle response, and a bit more torque as well. And in the manual box, it's so much fun. I'm never out of sport mode. But in comfort mode, it's a lot, just more civilized. It's a lot softer, the steering's a bit more loose, so you get to turn it a bit more, and the throttle response is a little bit less. It's a bit more spongy, which isn't a bad thing. It just means that you get to go a bit softer on the throttle, which is fine for, town driving. Now with the automatic box, it seems that comfort's the way to go because the gearbox is a lot more smoother. It gets a bit more time to know what it wants to do and calculate what it needs to do next. And overall, it's just better. In sport mode, it makes it more jerky and a bit more so I would roll with comfort if I were you guys, if you have an automatic. It just makes life so much easier and a lot nicer as well. But if you want to rock in sport mode, I don't blame you because it is awesome. Just be prepared for that, slight bit of jerkiness and, that confusion that the gearbox might have. But apart from that, let me just rack the old brain here and make sure that I've talked about everything with you guys. Right then people, that is everything for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it and I hope this served as a helpful and useful video for you all. Now, I've wanted to talk about the automatic gearbox on this channel for quite some time, but never got to do so in great detail. So I'm quite happy that I was able to dedicate this video to the gearbox. Now, if there's anything that I have missed or haven't mentioned in today's video, then please feel free to leave your questions in the comments below because I'll be happy to answer them. But I think I was able to get everything that's very important about the gearbox explained and talked about. And well, that is pretty much it for today's video. If you want any content at all, or if you want to see it as soon as it comes out, then you guys know what to do. Hit that bell, like, comment and subscribe because it's always appreciated. And hey, we're very, very close to 300 subscribers. I can feel it, guys. I mean, hey, if we reach it by the end of this month, that will be absolutely awesome. The march to 300 subscribers has definitely begun. And well, we'll see what happens. But for now, guys, I'll see you in the future. Have a good one.